As you can see, it's a full crew here. Alex Neil, the former Hamilton manager, has joined us tonight. Owen Coyle as well, good to see you, representing Dundee United ahead of this playoff tie. Dundee United, of course, against Hamilton later on from 7:15 on BTSport 1. And the usual suspects all around, Stephen.
Good
Michael.
evening, Daryl.
Good evening, Chris. Good evening. Are you going to be okay? Are you going to get sunburnt over there?
Well, I've got the sun in my eyes. I'm not in a good position, but let's see how we get on, Daryl.
Good, I'll be sunburnt.
He got burnt earlier on at golf, so he's a little bit tender.
Yeah, just the usual.
All these excuses.
You can't be good
excuses there as well. Don't worry about that.
You can't be good at everything, Daryl.
Oh, yeah, right.
It'd be nice if you're good at something, though.
You wouldn't know we're live, but we are. Let me tell you guys, we are. Right, there's a few subjects to get through, and please keep on sending in your questions. I'll get a phone handed in to me in just a couple of minutes, and we'll try and get through as many as we can of them. Let's start on this playoff, though. Did you expect Hamilton to be in this? Because obviously they've had a couple of great years in the top flight, but now it's a difficult two-legged tie to get through to stay in it, Alex.
Yeah, I think before the split, looking at it, you'd have thought that they would have picked up enough points to avoid it. You know, I think they were in a good position before the split, but they haven't performed well enough within the split. You know, they've only won one game, and when you do that against the teams in and about you, then naturally you're going to filter yourself to the bottom of the league. So, did they deserve to be there? Certainly based on the results, then the answer would be yeah.
As for Dundee United, they've done well to get here because they've come through the quarter-final and the semi-final, Owen.
Well, they have, and I think they had a little dip in the middle of the season that allowed Hibernian to build that gap, and obviously they found themselves in the playoffs. But what they have coming into these games is momentum, and that's huge in the playoffs, as Alex will tell. We all know that from our experience in Scotland and England, that momentum this time can be so important.
Who do you favour, Michael?
I said from the start, you know, before the Falkirk tie, that I had a funny feeling Dundee United would get up.
You reminded me about that.
Yeah, I'll hopefully remind you at some other point as well. So I still think Dundee United will do it. Well, it's going to be tough, there's no doubt about that. But as Owen says there, Dundee United have got momentum, they've got form, they're unbeaten in 10 now, and I think this is crucial at this stage.
Are they player for player better than Hamilton?
I think so.
I'm not sure I'd agree with that. I don't think so. I think, see, if you look at the three playoffs that have been played, there's only been one team, which has been Hamilton Accies, that have won the playoffs coming up from the Championship. And arguably, certainly looking at the other teams that played in the playoffs, you would have expected them to win.
I think the judging factor is, if you're asked Dundee United players which team they'd rather have faced, I think they'd rather have faced Inverness. I think they know Hamilton, that'll be sticky, they'll be difficult, they've got experienced players in Dougie Imrie, Darian McKinnon. They know how to manage games. They know how to, get players behind them. They will carry the team.
I think the other thing as well, Stephen, is I think that was a huge result for Hamilton at the weekend, because they actually come into the game on the back of a very good performance, scoring goals, and they're feeling good about themselves. And I think if Hamilton can feel they can leave here tonight with a positive result, albeit even a draw, that will set them up for the second leg.
OK, we'll talk about that lots more, of course, from 7:15 tonight. But a few other issues I want to get through before we take in some questions. Scotland squad named. Do you like the look of it? And I guess there was a couple of surprise omissions. Oliver Burke wasn't in there, and I think a lot of people also thought Callum McGregor might be in there, Michael.
Well, I think, it almost seemed as if Callum McGregor was going to be a stick-on, and the fact he isn't in there is a bit of a surprise. 4 goalkeepers to begin with as well. It was a bit of a... It's a bit of an unusual one, you would never expect 4 goalkeepers to be in there. So I look around the squad and you think that there's more than enough for me. I think that to get a positive result in June next month, and hopefully get this man along.
There's
never
really major surprises, is there? Gordon doesn't really do major surprises. The fact that he didn't bring Callum McGregor in when everyone's shouting for it. Gordon's the type of character that if he thinks everyone's wanting something, he's a little bit, and holds off. But I think
he's a bit awkward, Craig.
No, he's his own man. He makes his own decisions. He doesn't like to be influenced by anyone else. He likes to show, I'm the boss, I'm in charge, it's my team. And I think that's
he was awkward with me, Gordon, though, at Celtic, I have to say.
Just about everybody is, though, with you,
Daryl.
Just for the record. Yes. Do you fancy our chances against England?
I think it's going to be tough. Like Chris was saying earlier, are Hamilton player for player better than Dundee United? I don't think there's any question that England are better player for player than Scotland. But equally, can they go there and get a result and perform? I think if they perform at their maximum and England aren't at it, then anything's possible.
Yeah, I actually think Scotland can win the game. And to Alex's point, he's right. They've got England some fantastic players, but it's not always best players that make the best team, as we know. And I just think, given the Scotland had to show a bit of character to win last time out, and now obviously being at home, they've an opportunity to go and put themselves right in the mix again.
Chris, as an Englishman, which Scottish player would you fear? Looking at that Scotland squad, which player would you think, well, he's the danger man?
Callum McGregor.
It's a good question from you,
put him right on the spot.
I think that Scott Brown has been an enormous influence. I don't think Scott Brown should play, though. I think it hampers
Because you're fearful of
Celtic's-
him. You should just stop. He's not allowed to
because
play.
if you just let me finish, Michael, thank you. Because I think it may harm Celtic's chances in the Champions League. I'd prefer Scott Brown to be rested.
Well,
So you're thinking club over country again, and it's an Englishman
what do you
talking
mean
in the
again,
far end
Darryl?
there. Eh?
I've got to say, for all the quality the England squad has, and it's undoubted. I mean, I've watched the last number of internationals, and I can't say I've ever sat and looked at it and it's filled you with fear, with Scotland to go and play them.
Yeah.
So I think Scotland got to be out there on the front foot, and if everybody plays to the maximum, they're more than capable of winning the game, and Gordon will know that.
just touching on what Chris has said about Scott Brown, if you listen to him and hear what he's saying, he feels in better shape than he's felt in a long time. So a lot of credit's got to go down to Brendan Rodgers. Stark contrast to how he felt last season under Ronnie Dyler. So, I thought when he came back from international retirement that Brendan Rodgers would have been, disappointed with it. But I almost think that it's the complete opposite. That he's feeling so good about himself that he doesn't need the break that he needed last year. He had 7 weeks off last summer, and that's what's been able to, sort of kick him on this year.
Don't make a mistake, because he laughs on the outside. You
What
see him
mistake?
in the...
What mistake?
Well, that was
I
some
know.
break,
He just-
7 weeks last week.
It was.
Yeah, it was.
It's a long week, that 7 weeks last week. Anyway, look, we've got a few topics I want to get through. I also want to take some questions as well. Here's one from Paulo Crow. He's asking, should Simon Murray move to Hibs? Neil Lennon's just been with us, of course, watching him score goals in the playoffs.
Well, you just wonder, is that connection because of Neil's reaction after last Friday night? Neil was raving about him, spoken about him carrying the team. I think Hibs fans, if Simon Murray was coming in as a second or third choice striker, yes. But for what their ambitions are and what their hopes and aims are, signing someone from Dundee United to be your main striker, I think the Hibs fans would be slightly concerned.
OK, Michael Farrell McGill said, nice tank top, by the way, and he's absolutely right. Very nice colour there. A couple of other topics to get into. I like it.
I know you do
That question's not there, Dal. You just said that.
No, that is actually there.
Don't
That
believe
is
you.
one that I can read at the moment.
Was there some nasty ones about Owen?
No, there's as usual,
nothing new about that.
There's a lot about you though, Chris. No, there's not. One thing I did want to ask you about though is the Sunderland job at the moment. Among the favourites, Derek McInnes. Now, the timing of this news as well, just before a Scottish Cup final. I mean, first of all, does it add up, Owen? Do you think?
Yeah.
Given that who's there at the club and Martin Bain and others, and apparently David Moyes is helping pick his successor.
Yeah, well, regardless of who's there at the club, I think it adds up in respect of Derek's done a wonderful job with Tony Docherty at Aberdeen, and they've shown, as I say, coming back from obviously the disappointment they had at Bristol City, how good they can be. So I think regardless of who's picking them and who's not picking the manager, they would be in the frame because of how well they've did at Aberdeen and still get a chance to finish the season a real high. They're going to have to be at their best, but they've still have a chance to win the Cup at the weekend.
Chris, what's your thought on that? Obviously, the timing is not something Derek McInnes would want right now, but do you think he would be interested in that job, regardless of what happens in the Cup final?
I think he would be interested, and I wonder whether Alex would be interested in that job as well. He's sitting here.
There's
so
a few people
I
here that
can't
might be
ask-
interested.
I can't ask Derek McInnes, but I can ask Alex.
OK, well, you just did. Alex?
I'm quite happy just enjoying the sun and being here. But to add to what Owen was saying, I think is Derek merited in getting linked with the job? Then I don't think there's any questions. I mean, he's done as well as he probably could have done with Aberdeen for the last 3 seasons, really.
Yeah.
I think the consistency level at Aberdeen have shown, and let's be honest, when he came back from England, his managerial career was slightly tarnished, and it was a huge job to go to Aberdeen and try and rebuild a club that had been on its knees for the previous 7 or 8 years. So to get it where it's got to get players back in the international fold, to be challenging for trophies, to be consistently finished second place and getting mid-70 points, terrific return. So I can completely see why he's been linked.
And just on that, I mean, Steve makes a good point, and I think ultimately in our game in football, a lot is about perception. You mentioned there when Derek came back from Bristol City about being slightly tarnished. Now, anybody, obviously, Derek's a good friend of mine. He worked for, he was my player coach at St Johnstone, and obviously I felt he was perfect for the job when I left and went to Burnley, and he took it and did fantastic. So I'm kind of privy to what went on at Bristol City, and that's what people don't understand. There's a lot of workings behind the scenes that people don't realise, and there's a lot of perception in football. Now, I think for what Derek had to deal with at Bristol City, him and Tony did very well. But people outside will not realise it because they don't know what they had to contend with. So I've got no doubts, whether it's Sunderland or anywhere else, he more than merits being in the frame.
Your cardigan's got a mention as well. A few people are wondering why in 25 degrees you're wearing that.
Yeah, because
you're feeling it now, aren't you?
Sweat stains through.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you think Aberdeen, Owen, can crack on again next season, or do you think it's the end of their cycle?
I think in respect to Derek knows he'll be losing a number of players, and I think there will be.
Brian Jack, do you think he'll...
It's after your
end
job
up
again,
at-
Darryl, isn't it?
Yes,
Well,
he
I
does.
mean, there's a number that's going to. I mean, obviously McGinn's been been talked about leaving. Johnny Hayes, I know Cardiff were in for Johnny Hayes in the January
He signed
window.
a new deal. Johnny Hayes isn't going to go.
Yeah,
I'd like to see Derek stay. You know, I'm not so sure Sunderland is a really attractive job, because it's all about how much funds they get to spend.
Well, and they're looking for new owners as well.
Well, the difficulty they have, to Chris's point, is right that the owner's looking to sell.
Yeah.
Then you've got to understand we're coming down, what finance is going to be available. On the other side of that is it's a huge club. The supporters, as you know, they come and they back their team and the players and everything else. So there is a lot of good positive things about it.
It's very much like when he took over at Aberdeen. You know, it's a club that are, you know, a sort of dip. They're at the bottom end. I can't believe a butterfly has just landed on Chris. Oh, yeah.
It smelled good, Darryl.
Yeah.
When it realised who it was, in fairness, it was awful.
I realised what it'd done, and it was like, I'm out of here.
Normally something off a set.
The only difference, Michael, is that next year Sunderland will be expected to get right back up again. So it's a different type of pressure in that respect.
That's true, but it's a good, you know, opportunity to lift the club from, you know, from where it is.
Yeah, as long as I would suggest, as long as whoever goes in is given the time to do that, and Alec will tell you that's not commonplace in England.
It's time. The problem that you've got and going into Sunderland right away is they've got a group of players that have been there for a large period of time, and they're on far too much money, and their contracts.
And I have to say as well, which
run.
and again, Alec and Chris will vouch for this, because we know obviously through managerial experience and everything else, and Stephen now dipping his toe in the water with that. To have that relationship with owners and chairman is to have that nowadays, that's very important, and it's not too often. Derek has a wonderful relationship with his chairman at Aberdeen, and they've built a lot of nice things there together. So I think that would be a wrench to leave that, because Aberdeen, a fantastic club with a good fan base and everything else, talking about new stadium plans, so there's a lot going on there as well.
Can I ask a question, Darryl, to Alex?
Another
about
one.
Chris
You
Boyd's
usually
comments in the week
Yeah.
about the standard of Scottish football being the worst that it's ever been.
Wasn't overly positive, was it?
Do you accept that, Alex?
I'll be honest with you, I wasn't privy to that, Chris saying that, but is it the worst that it's ever been?
Given the way Celtic have played this season, is that about OTT?
Yeah, I think it is a bit OTT. You know, I think teams like Aberdeen, like Celtic, I think the league for me is really divided. I mean, I think you've got the top teams at the league which are extending away from the others, and I think you've got the other teams which are all sort of scrapping among themselves to see who's going to be the best of the rest, if you like.
Do you think he said that because his old team hasn't been doing too well this season?
Yeah, potentially, but I think Rangers have been through a hell of a lot over recent years, and they've still got a hell of a lot of catching up to do to get back to where they were.
I think again, because obviously being as we are down in England, and people kind of do want to cane the Scottish game a little bit, and there's been a huge gap. But I've got to, if you're asking me, and not because obviously brought up being Celtic through and through, I think Celtic deserve enormous credit. And the thing I think they deserve enormous credit for is
to say the standards at the worst it's ever been.
Well, I think
is utter rubbish, isn't it? Let's get it right. When you think Aberdeen, when you think of Hibs this season, when you think of Partick Thistle, St Johnstone, year in and year out. I don't know why Chris said it. And in the next sentence, do you know what he said? He's the biggest supporter of Scottish football. Well, so I think it was crass, really crass. A very poor comment. No, I like Chris. I do like Chris. You know, he's been on our show.
Yes, he
was. The thing is,
times.
it's competitive, because you look at the bottom six after the split. All 6 teams could have been relegated automatically. So that tells you there's not an awful lot between the teams. Of course, competitive football doesn't mean quality football, but there's always a story to be told. It's entertaining to watch. Yes, it may not be the best style, but certainly there's always something to do.
I think what would be nice going into next season is the teams, Rangers, Aberdeen, whoever it is, if they can actually do a little bit better in Europe.
Yeah.
And I think that helps everybody, because sometimes people look at that. It was great Celtic getting back into the group stages, but it'd be nice if they do it again. They're able to go and win games and threaten to get to the next stage.
It's the sort of comment that you expect somebody from down south to make, you know, that misunderstands the Scottish
football. Well, we hear that all the time, and I mean, we're defending it day in, day out.
I think that the Scottish game, you know, the top flight is basically like a microcosm of the English leagues. You've got teams in the top flight in Scotland that are as good as Premier League teams down south. You've got Championship clubs in there. There's also League 1 and League 2 sides in the Scottish top flight, and that's what makes it difficult for, you know, English viewers to turn around and say, "Oh, that looks terrible."
Well, there's no doubt that Celtic have a huge gap over everybody else, but I think the one thing that Celtic do deserve enormous credit for is to go unbeaten, because at any given time you can lose a game. If the players can have a bad day, the goalkeeper makes a mistake, a bad refereeing decision, you know, the goalkeeper you're playing against is a worldie. To go unbeaten is a truly unbelievable achievement.
A few questions coming in I'd like to get through. Ryan Curry's been in touch. He says, is there no ice cream van about? Well, in fact, there was an ice cream van earlier on, and he's also
Darren,
wondering about
the question sensible.
He says you need to lose the card.
Darren,
yes, that is my brother, by the way. He's watching, and he should be working right now, which is disgraceful.
Ridiculous question from a member of your family.
Absolutely, it runs in the family.
Can we get an intelligent one from a Sutton?
No, there's a lot about Chris I can't read again. There's lots coming in about Hamilton for you. But can I just take you back to Derek McInnes just ahead of the Cup final? He's made a big decision. He's obviously taken the captaincy away from Ryan Jack. He's given it to Graham Shinnie amid all the rumours that Ryan Jack will leave and go to Rangers. Do you think that's a good decision?
I think to myself, you've got this one game that finishes the season, and Derek McInnes has always, when he's picked his strongest teams, put Ryan Jack in there. He's always trusted him. I don't see why, coming to the end of his contract, all of a sudden he doesn't trust, Ryan Jack to go out there and perform. If I was picking Aberdeen's strongest team, I personally wouldn't have a problem with Ryan Jack not being in the team. But Derek McInnes has shown over the course of his time there that he's somebody he always goes to. So it's a big, big call for him.
Is the Rangers link the issue?
Well,
I think about having
fans as well.
For Sunderland, what it would be easier to do.
Yeah.
So the fact it could be Rangers, the bad blood, the history between the two clubs, I think that's made his mind up.
Do you think it's a good call?
Well, if they win the Cup, yes.
And if
well, is it a good call? Before the final?
That's irrelevant what I think. But if he wins the Cup,
it's not irrelevant what you think.
By the way, he might not start. That could be the other thing.
I don't think he will start.
Because he's been injured.
Well, I think as managers, you've always got decisions to make. And I think with the speculation, everything's going with it. And he has. And obviously, the boy Jack's well within his rights to leave. Yeah. That's fine. But equally, Derek's well within his rights to name whoever he feels captain. Shinnie's totally committed. Would you
play him,
if he was fully fit and mentally? Obviously, Derek will know that because he'll sit with him and chat. I think he's a very good player.
Do you think he's a good signing for Rangers if he goes there?
Well, I think you have other options. I've got to say that.
Yeah.
I think he's the type of player that Rangers have already got a number of.
Do you think Derek McInnes would feel let down if he went to Rangers after him appearing to say he was going down south?
What I would say on that, as a manager, I think if a player's told you something, and then everybody's well within their rights to change their mind. But I think if he's told you something that he's not going to somewhere and then turns around and says, I am, I think he feels
But maybe at that moment he wasn't going there.
No, I agree with that.
Maybe at that moment he wasn't. So
everybody's well within their rights to change their mind. So I think that then you expect an explanation as to why it is. But ultimately,
he might have done that.
Yeah, Derek's not doing this through spite. He's doing this because it's the best for Aberdeen, as he's done with every decision he's made.
Okay, Ewan McGregor's asked one of several questions coming in.
Perhaps
there's quite a few coming in for you on Hamilton. If you were in that dressing room ahead of the game tonight, what would you be saying to the players? Because you inspired them, didn't you, back in 2014 to get through this?
Yeah, I think Hamilton will approach the game in a different manner in which they would have done a week ago. And what I mean by that was, on Saturday, if they didn't win on Saturday, they were getting relegated automatically. Yeah. So what I think they've given themselves now is a lifeline and an opportunity to cement themselves in the Premier League. So I think we're talking about momentum from obviously Dundee United, who have been in a good season, but I think Hamilton's mindset after Saturday's game would certainly have changed. I think the result would have helped that, and I think they'll come into tonight's game knowing that they've got this opportunity to make sure that they don't let themselves down and drop down a division.
Is Mikey Devlin a big loss?
Yes, huge loss.
Yeah. And there's a question about Ali Crawford as well. What is he worth at the moment? Are you surprised he's still here?
It's difficult. I think the one thing with Ali is, technically, I think we've all seen how good he is. Left foot, right foot. He can see a pass. He's got a goal on him from distance. He can create something out of nothing. I think the issue that's against Ali is probably his size. Because I think he's got to go to a particular type of team that are going to play a particular way for him to fit into it. And if he did that, I think he would be an excellent player for someone. But it's got to be for the right club.
Okay, getting on to Celtic, you already mentioned the unbelievable season they've had, and going invincible the whole league season is some achievement. A lot of questions coming in about what they can add now to improve next season, to go again, to improve in Europe. Chris, what do you think they need to do? What do they need to address?
Centre half. I think that's. I have to say, I'm still not convinced with the goalkeeper at the highest level. He's had a decent season. But he's made mistakes. Michael. But he has had a good season in Europe. I think a centre half. I don't trust Boyata, if I'm being totally honest. I think he's performed decently well, but he scares me when he's in possession of the ball. So I think those two positions key, and holding on to the players. Tierney's been linked again down south. Yeah. Dembele. I think Dembele will stay anyway. I think Sinclair is happy. Tierney's the one.
So you think Celtic need a goalkeeper?
I think that would be a position where...
I would disagree with that.
Do I think he's going to strengthen their? No.
I think he's different class. I think he's been an outstanding goalkeeper. Obviously had some bad injuries, but I think when he's played consistently, he's always shown his quality. But it's all about opinion. That's why we all love the game. Everybody has different flavours. Obviously, Chris looks for. What I would say for Celtic to improve, it's not about domestically. It's about those Champions League, the group stages, and try to push beyond. And I think Brendan will have looked at it. And again, I think you can improve every position. If there's better players available and you have the funds, go and get them.
I think for me, where I will agree with Chris is that centre half would be the first port of call. In the Champions League, you get to a certain level where you're going to get stretched, and you have to have defenders that can compete one-on-one at times. Not through design. Sometimes teams just counter you, they attack you, and I don't think the centre halves are good enough at that level to go 1v1 at times.
I think the problem you've got as well, but is they're not getting tested regularly at SPL level. So try to raise your game to go into a Champions League and play against some of the top strikers, having not sort of sampled that week in, week out, I think can prove difficult for the best of players.
The stewards are about to come and do their security check. If they come over, we'll take a walk down in the pitch, because obviously security at the moment is very important.
I think Patrick Roberts as well, it looks like he's going to go back down south. So I think that Brendan will make a move in that area.
Yeah, no,
I think he's going to be a big
one. Just saying Johnny Hayes, Chris. Would you take Johnny Hayes?
Would I take Johnny Hayes? No, not for Celtic.
Before we move on, though, we should also pay tribute to the Lisbon Lions. 50 years ago to the day they won the European Cup, and there's a show later on BTSport 1 tonight on the story of Sean Fallon, Ironman it's called, which is well worth watching. But would you guys like to pay tribute to that achievement, what they did, and the stories that are still emerging from that great run that season?
Well, actually, Sean Fallon signed me for Dumbarton when I was 13, and it was a family friend and everything else. But I mean, that team, to live within that locality, to go and do what they did, and obviously Scottish football was we were talking about it earlier on, what level was it at that time? It was, it was one of the best leagues in Europe. Rangers got to European final. Kilmarnock, I think, won the semi-final in the first cup. But for Celtic to go and do what they did, it was just unbelievable. And the way they played the football, I think that's so important.
They said Sean Fallon was one of the great recruiters. It just goes to show he got you at 13 from the bar tonight.
He released him at 14. So it was nothing to do with. Was it the family friend you said? That was nothing. Nothing
to do with my two older brothers when at the Barton at the time as well.
Anyone else got anything to say in Lisbon Lions before we move on? Alex, would you like to just...
I think Owen's covered it really. I think the fact that they came to such sort of close proximity and managed to achieve what they did was an incredible feat, and I'm not sure it'll ever be replicated.
And even on match day when you go up to Celtic Park now, they're still there. And Betty Hall was my manager actually as well. And some of the stories, and I got to actually know all them, and it was just a joy to actually know them. But the level of football they played was unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Okay, question coming in from Darryl Hill on Hearts. Where do you think they'll finish next season, Michael? And also, let me ask you about Christophe Berra coming. Do you think that's a good start to their summer recruitment?
Yeah, I think that that's a position that they needed to strengthen, because they've had Prince Boabin playing centre half of late, and he's clearly not a centre half. So I think it's a good sign in. Although obviously he's coming towards the end of his career, they're going to have to make a number of other good signings. But I still go back to this point: signing 9 players every transfer window flies in the face of a director of football role. So there needs to be a bit of light shone on what is going on there in terms of where they're going to finish.
What do you think, Michael?
What do I think with respect to what? I just don't think it's been done very well, and I think it's contrary to what you would suggest as one of the positives.
Do you think
of a
Levine's making all the calls
in respect of the signings? No, I think that's the problem, Chris.
We'll have a walk, guys. We'll keep talking.
That's the problem. We don't know. There's a level of Craig Levine's position does everything and nothing. So there's a lack of transparency there, and yeah. Where are they going to finish? I think it is very much important on how they do in the transfer market.
Okay, are we okay here? I think we're just about okay here.
That's all right, because all ones are at the back, Darryl.
Huddle round indeed. What's your thoughts on Hearts, the recruitment that needs done?
Huge
and also,
summer.
Still a lot of questions coming in about Ian Cathro and whether or not he's the right man, Chris. Here.
Huge summer. Well, it looks, whether he is or he isn't. I understand that, why there's a large frustration.
He is, Chris?
Do I think he is? I think, on his record, it wouldn't have been a great surprise had they changed in the summer.
Do you think he is?
I think that he will. Yeah, I think he is. I think you give him another opportunity. But the first few games are absolutely crucial. So why do you want to
give him another opportunity, but you are hammering Pedro Caixinha?
Well, I'd said that Rangers are doomed under
right,
Pedro Caixinha.
But you're hammering Pedro in a shorter period of time than you are with Ian.
Well, if you just listen to what I say, they are doomed. So, I have made a judgment on him based on what he said about Aberdeen. last week, the end of their cycle, and some of the other things he said about Derek McInnes, wanting his job.
So you don't see that as contradictory?
No, I don't say it's called an opinion, Michael. Maybe you should get one.
I think whether it's Pedro Casino or Ian Carter, they've got to be given time to try and build a
transfer
team.
window.
Well, certainly in the way they'd like to mould a team and be allowed to do that. And then to Chris's point, then they'll be judged on that. There's no doubt about it. But give them an opportunity.
But would it worry you as a chairman, some of the stuff which has come out of the manager? Can you trust him? And that's my point about Pedro Casino.
I think some of that might be that, and I know he's been to Mexico and everything else, but coming into for him as a foreign league, I think it's a little bit of getting used to that and understanding what you can say and what you can't, and who you say it to. I agree with you. I think some of the stuff didn't sit right with a lot of people, particularly stuff about Derek and everything else. I thought that was a little bit over the top, but hopefully he'll learn from that and then move on. But I mean,
Owen, he also said they were the best team in the league.
Yeah.
Yet he's now dismantling that best team in the league.
There is talk of the fire sale now, isn't there?
I think initially when you come in, I think he's come in judged and he's thought, I've got good players here. And then when you get to work with them on a daily basis, then you really find
naive.
out. I know, Michael, but you know yourself, we can all go to games and look at a player and think, I tell you what, he's a really good player. But until you get to work with them on a daily basis, you actually see what the qualities are.
But come out and say they're the best squad. And then what the crowd
just keep your mouth quiet.
I think it was more than naive. We're not disagreeing with that. But I think having then judged him, he's looked and thought, I need a lot of players in here. It's whether he has the financial clout to go and be able to change it. Because if you're going to change like for like, just a body for a body, it ain't going to help the team.
Yeah. Darren Simpson's asked a couple of questions on Rangers, Lafferty, Naismith. Some of their former players have been linked to talk of the fire sale. And he's also asking the question about the manager. Some people quite clearly are raising the issue that right away, even Rangers fans are worried, I think, going ahead. But do you think he needs the full summer recruitment window and then needs a few more months to be judged, Alex?
Yeah, I think it would only be fair. I think the point that Michael made was good about giving Ian time and different things. See, the simple fact is with managers, regardless whether you go into a club or not, and we spoke about it earlier, going down to a team like Sunderland, which is a lot of transition, a lot of churn with players, you need time, but ultimately you'll be judged on results. And now whether it's a short term, medium term or longer term, if you don't win enough games, you're out. It really is as simple as that. It doesn't matter what club you work for. So the fact is, Kushinya can say what he likes. He'll be judged on results, and see if he doesn't produce the results, he'll be gone.
What about the style of his football?
Well, I
think for the likes of Rangers, I think that's a big thing. Because I think Celtic, Rangers, the top teams in the league, and I think Manchester United are getting heavily criticised in England for it at the moment. I think they've got a responsibility to try and play the game in a manner which brings the fans and attracts people to come and watch the game.
They don't have a style, which has been
the
biggest question. Under Mark Warburton, accused of a one-trick pony. We stood here ourselves and did, but at least he had a style. But I think it's fair to say.
What's your point on this?
Well, I think that's the issue. The fact that normally when you get a new manager and he's going to change everything, you normally see an upturn in performance. You normally see players' level of performance go up. But Rangers seems to have deteriorated since he came in. So trying to convince the ones to stay, trying to change it around. The players are quite clearly not buying into what he's trying to do.
And you also looked at the contract situation, and you know that the majority of that squad are under contract for next year. So let me ask you this. How many do you think he'll be able to get out the door before he can bring in?
Well, they may have to cut their losses on a lot of them, which again is going to be a huge financial outlay for them.
Very little.
Whether they sell them or whether they give them away.
But the other point on that, Stephen, as well, and you know this, if players are on good contracts and they're going somewhere else, then they're not going to go unless they get looked after financially.
So then these players who he said the best squad, who he's then trying to out, how are they going to respond, Daryl?
Well, that is the question, isn't it, Chris? Anyway, on that note, because you love a question, don't you?
What about Richie Foran? Do we think Richie Foran's going to stay on?
Let's continue. Yeah, we've got a show soon. Let's keep going.
Richie Foran, do you think he'll carry on?
Well, bad apples. He said bad apples in the dressing room. Yeah. You know Richie very well. Think he'll still be there next season? He obviously wants to get players out.
I tried to judge from their team round about Christmas time when he said last week he should have got rid of them round about Christmas. Yeah. And the team from Christmas to the team at the end of the season wasn't vastly different. Josh Meekins is injured, Carl Tremarco's injured, Owen Williams is injured. So I think I have no idea who the three are or what they are. They certainly didn't win enough games.
And then he came out and said, I want a smaller squad. Next year.
Well, he's going to get one.
Well, he is. If you've got your bad apples there, you just don't use them.
Richie's biggest support was Kenny Cameron, the chairman.
And he's gone.
And he's gone. So it'll be interesting to see in the next couple of weeks what direction Inverness decide to go in.
OK, I'm feeling pink. You're looking pink, so I think we should wrap this up for now. We'll be back with you at 7:15 p.m. BT Sport 1 for this playoff final. See you later.